You don't look like Michelle Dewey.
Good morning, Dusty. You can hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Chip. Yes.
Good. It's working.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can, Gordon. Yes.
Thank you.
Angie, are you sitting outside in front of City Hall? Can I look out the window and see you? She's muted.
Yes, I forgot I was muted. I'm afraid one of my kids is going to walk through. That's why. Negative. I am not. I am sitting in my dining room, but I have very ugly wallpaper that I still haven't ripped out. So.
Good morning, all. Just checking my mic.
You're good.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh, Michael.
Hello.
No.
Hello.
I think all I do is Zoom with you, Michael.
Let's just keep hanging out.
Yeah.
We'll give it just a minute or two. We still have people joining.
Good morning.
Hi, Meredith.
I see I'm logged in under my kid's Zoom account.
I was trying to figure that out. Lydia.
They've been Zooming at school and I never know who I'm going to be when I pop up in here. Hey, Dusty, I'm happy to take minutes, but I have a hard stop at 9:30. So if we're still going, somebody might have to jump in and finish up.
Understood. Excellent. Good morning, Jerry. All right, well, it's 8 o'clock, so I guess we should get started. Welcome to the Downtown Development Authority June 10th meeting of 2000. Just as in the past, we're still learning on the Zoom. Ashley's here helping me, and she will be muting everybody. And then when the time comes to speak, raise your hand or something of that nature, and then we'll unmute. And that's just a safety precaution from Zoom bombers, if you know what that is. So here comes Greg, so he'll be joining us too. So we can do roll call pretty easily, Meredith, so I think you can see everybody. So we have that. You also, in the next item is we presented an agenda. And is there any changes that anybody would like to, or additions or to the agenda? If not, I would accept a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Unmute. Can you unmute?
So move. I move.
All right, Jerry moved.
Second.
Second by Diane. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Hi.
All those opposed, the same. All right, the minutes are approved and put into the record. I'm sorry, the agenda is approved and we present the agenda. Now the minutes. The minutes were given to you in the email for our May 13th meeting. Is there any additions, corrections, or anything to the minutes? If none, I'll accept a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved.
That's Mark. Support?
Yep.
Can I get a support?
Diane, support.
Diane support. Diane supported. Any further discussion? All those in favor of submitting the meeting minutes into the record of May 13th indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. All right, thank you, Meredith, for those minutes. Awesome. So we're going to start right off with the organizational committee, and we conducted a couple of interviews last week. So some people were on one interview, and others that could make it was on another interview. And what we did is we interviewed Deborah Loveland, who has a business downtown in the insurance business as well as real estate. And she has a number of things going on, and her husband works with her. I've known Deborah for a long time, and I've known Chad, her husband, for a long time as well. She's very eager to get involved in the DDA or in downtown. She seems to be very assertive and strong, and a number of us interviewed her. There was also an interview later in the day, which I asked Dave Thomas to be a part of, as well as the mayor. And then the mayor watched a recording of the interview with Deborah Loveland after that, of the Zoom meeting. So at this point, I want to, Emily Rebar works for Visit Lenawee, and with Brett, and she has some great talents as well. She works with Siena Heights University, and she had as well. I think it was in their, what is it? Their acting.
Yeah.
Yes, and she has some special talents as well. She does websites. She can do brochures. She's really good with social media. She's energetic. She's also a very, very good, talented pick as well. One of the backgrounds that I want to mention about Emily was that I had sat down with, where's my brain this morning? I need more coffee. Justin, and we talked about collaborating with Visit Lenawee and the talents and what she has already brought to Visit Lenawee and all the things she's implemented, from social media to the brochures and things that they do. So, I've had a discussion with Angie, and Angie, if you want to make some comments as well on this, or Diane, I'll open it up. But I think Angie and I, when we talked, we were leaning towards Emily at this point, although we do want to keep Deborah close because she has a lot of energy as well. But Emily looks like she'd be a great fit, especially as we move towards Main Street and we need these brochures that we're talking about. We need to have a better presence on the websites. We need a better presence on Facebook and really outreach of social media. It is a big part of that Main Street look, and I think that Emily would bring that piece right away. I think she also brings us a perspective from her college connections. Her dad obviously is at Adrian College, and she has a great relationship with Siena Heights, and I think that brings us another great perspective to the board. So,
And she actually brought that up in the interview that she, being a recent graduate, a couple years ago, she still works with students. She has a good pulse on students, and feels like she could really contribute from the college side, even though she's not in college anymore. She still understands that she has that young professional side that, so she can give us a lot of different angles and thoughts and how they're perceiving downtown and what we can do. And, what is something what are they looking for as young adults, as college students, and she can just give us a different perspective. And she did talk about that a lot in her interview.
Dusty, can I ask a question, please?
sure.
I just, since I didn't get to hear or see the interview, so I don't know, did you broach the subject with her about doing all that extra work? Because she does have a full-time job, right? Doing
What was-
brochure for us and all that. Did she say she would do that?
She did.
Yep.
She did. And as a matter of fact, I think the conversation's going to go a little, I don't want to put this out there too quickly, but when I was talking to Justin, we sat down and talked about resources and how they would like to share her resources with us. And so, or their resources with us as well. So it's sort of we haven't sat down and talked about the particulars there, but I do think it's a one of the organizations we could collaborate with. And since they want to help us as well, they're going to allow her to spend time on our activities. Does that make sense? While
Yeah,
she's working.
I want to make sure that this was approved by her, because that would be a nasty surprise.
No, that would not be good.
No, she
No.
knew. She said she's willing and she has a lot of energy and she would definitely put the work into it and was really excited and wanting to do that for us. But she was well aware. Dave and Dusty made it very clear. So.
And Diane, I would have sent you a meeting, but I don't think I recorded that one. I recorded the second one. My Zoom talents are still being honed in on. So, but I knew I could speak, and me and Angie could speak today about how that interview went. So.
Okay.
And the process here is that we try to interview, we try to get as many people, if I can get somebody to come to the interviews because of this Zoom thing, but we should make it a formal vote that we accept, that we recommend, so that Angie can take that appointment to the commission on the June 15th meeting, and they can say, hey, the DDA recommended Emily. So with that said, if there's no further discussion, I'd accept the motion to recommend Emily Rebar to the DDA open seat.
So move.
Diane?
Yep.
Can I get support?
Second.
Second by Mark Murray. Is there any further discussions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, the same. Excellent. I think she's going to be a wonderful addition, and I do want to keep Deborah real close to us. She's eager. She's been communicating with the mayor. She wants to be a part of it. We suggested not maybe this meeting, but in the future meetings that she come and see it and come look, see what we're doing, and become a little involved in that fashion. And we've seen this before with people with interest. So I want to see her. I'd like to see her, if we have an open position, move forward and keep her close to us. All right. Brad, is there anything happening in our finances?
No, I did get the April report. Obviously I didn't bring it to you guys today, but there's nothing really to report in it. Obviously we haven't spent any money and I didn't see anything out of the ordinary, so.
All right. Excellent. All right, and then I threw a lot at Chip here on the parking committee report, but I got a lot of the information myself. You will have seen in your attachments, there was a sign approval for Premier Bank, which is First Federal, changing their name. And we want to discuss a 15-minute parking spot. But Chip, are you guys getting together on the wayfinding and where are we at with that? And I think Jerry was sort of helping with that as well. Chip, are you still there?
Chip, you're on mute. If you want to unmute.
Is that right? Better?
There you are.
All right. We're going to get a meeting going for the way signage. We haven't done much since the coronavirus. I've sent an email out last night with the stuff that you sent yesterday about the parking situation. Our committee has not had a chance to discuss the request for the sign for the Premier Bank or the 15-minute parking spot for Dempsey. So we have not had a chance to discuss that as a committee.
Okay. So the sign approval process is just one in which our inspectors at the city, and Jeremiah, I think that's his name, goes through the process of making sure that if they're the right size, the right specs, the right position, all of that stuff. So we need not worry about that. What more we look at is the aesthetics and whether or not it fits well in our downtown. And I sent the sign review summary of what we as a body are responsible for. I myself am looking at the sign, haven't seen nothing that's extraordinary. It's the bank. It's a nice sign. It's going to be quality. So I just don't think we have to have a lot of discussion on that. I just think we need a vote to say, it's okay for them to change their signs to the Premier and the present. Those signs are aesthetically fine for our downtown. With that
What
said,
bank is this?
go ahead.
I know it's Premier, but what was it? I missed it the first
It's
time.
First Federal.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Across from the courthouse.
Yeah, across from the courthouse. So if there's
Make a motion to approve.
a motion from Mark to approve the sign,
Second.
there's been a second. Who was that?
Tim Roberts.
Tim Roberts. All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the sign indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed, the same. All right, the next one on a 15-minute parking spot. The city wants us to just make sure that we are aware and being a part of the decision-making when it comes to parking in downtown, since we ran the parking study, and there's a number of things that guide us through that study as to making approvals, that we can set a precedent and so that we don't have it being an arbitrary, any spot, anywhere type 15-minute parking. With the coronavirus, you know that a lot of the behaviors of the consumer has moved to a carry-out position and still is that way for now until we get more comfort. But with that, Dempsey's would like to have one in front of their place. If you refer to the parking study, it says either have it at the end of the blocks or in the middle. You can have it in the middle, but you shouldn't have it too far away from that. And we do believe, and the city believes, that that is a middle spot and would be in line with our parking study. So they want that 15-minute spot so that obviously people can come pick up, carry out, and take off. So does anybody have an issue with them being approved for a 15-minute parking spot?
I don't have an issue with it at all because I know how important that, can be. But I just want to say that we need to have some kind of procedure and taking a look at how it affects other businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not concerned about Dempsey's doing anything, but I'm going to pretty soon be surrounded by 15-minute parking spaces, and my customers are not going to be able to find a place to park. I mean, and if Hooligans decides she wants one, and the place next door to me decides they want one, and is it only going to be restaurants? Is it going to be restaurants and bars? Is it going to be coffee shops? I think we just cannot do this without some thought to how it affects the other businesses downtown. I'd love to have one in front of my store. I do carry out, and I do, for if anybody wants anything in my store and they don't want to come in, I do carry out to them. So how are we going to do this? I just want somebody to say something about how this is going to be done so that people like me don't get overrun by it.
Can we limit the number per block?
Is it possible for us to give them like 45 days? Like we'll grant it for 45 days and we'll use that 45 days for the parking committee to really dig into it a bit. So we can put the parameters on it. And then if in 45 days, Dempsey's would no longer meet those parameters, we have the opportunity to make a change. But, let's get them, I think approving them is a good idea. Maybe it's 60 days so they can get through most of the summer or something.
Yeah, because I'm worried, like Hooligans has been shut down completely. So now if she finds out that Dempsey has this parking space, is she going to say, well, I'm going to do curbside now when she reopens, which she wasn't doing before, so she wasn't hurt by that, by not having it? That's where I think that we're going to run into trouble, and we just have to have some kind of a plan in effect so that this doesn't take over the downtown, because every business is going to ask if they can have that.
How many restaurants do we have downtown? Do we have a quick number?
In the interior blocks, I don't know the exact number. I did count them up one day, and I think we have 13 in the downtown area, believe it or not. But anybody that has a curbside, I would have to count those in my head.
Dusty, is there a thought at all? I've seen this done other places where in each block, maybe there's like one spot that just says restaurant, 15-minute parking, do pick up. It's just general. It's not specific to Dempsey's or Hooligans or Rice and Barley or whatever it might be. And there's just one, maybe we say so many feet or whatever. I don't really know what the parameters would be on that, but just to do a general like restaurant 15-minute, curbside or whatever you call it. But then that way, then it doesn't become that every single, that all 13 restaurants want that. Like they can share that spot because that's what that goes for. It's more general.
That seems like the best
On
option.
our block, New Mizzou at the library, she'll ask for one. And then Hooligans is going to want one. And then on the other side of the street, you're going to have Dempsey's, and then you're going to have the cafe. And so that's going to be 4 parking spaces that were, and then there's the tea room. So that's 5.
I understand your point, Diane, and it is a good point, and it needs to be criteria. One of the things that you'll see in that request is it was written to the commission, and the previous granting of the 15-minute parking spot for Chandler's, I think, was through the process through the commission and not us. I don't believe we ever took a stance on that. And so I guess today what I'm saying is I wanted to bring it up. They wanted us to talk about it. They wanted us to relate it to our parking study, but Greg, I know you're on there, on the phone here. Do you have anything that you would like to share on this, or as far as process goes?
I was reading an email. Can you restate the question?
I'm sorry. Do you have any comments on this? Because this was written to the commission, and the commission, I believe, was the one that granted the 15-minute parking spot for challengers. So I don't know if I don't believe, Angie, you guys have a set criteria or limited number or anything of that nature. It was a case-by-case basis. And now, yes, now it's going to start to accelerate probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been involved in those discussions. Is the curbside pickup spot necessarily for a particular business, or does it need to be for a particular business? Or can you designate a spot for curbside pickup where
That's what
stop?
Angie was saying was a good idea. And I have to agree with her that you can designate one on each side of the street, and it's not going to hurt us too badly for that. And I get that. And it is important that that we be able to keep these businesses operating. But this is just about over, fingers crossed. And are they going to continue having that much curbside business? So putting one on the side of the street seems like a smart thing to do. Or I like Jerry's idea, or whoever that was, about putting a time restriction on it and then reviewing it again for all of them, that we can't just, we have no idea where that could go if there's no protocol.
I would say there's some value going forward with having these spots available, right? Even after things return to some form of normalcy, even if it's just one on each side of the street.
Yep.
For somebody that just wants to stop and walk around too. I mean, it might not be for curbside pickup.
I know that my daughter used to work at Dempsey's last year, and I know why they're asking. Like, I understand. I do not think that it's actually pandemic even related in many ways, because she said the vast majority of all of their business was pickup, like curbside, run in, grab it. She said rarely did people like actually sit in there and ever eat. So I know. So that's why I think we need to look at it even past pandemic times, because I do think there is a need, and there are businesses like that people just want to run in and grab it. And is that going to continue anyways? Because people are a little leery of restaurants. How long is that going to last? Of sitting in there, I mean, not of getting there. So I really do think we need to look at that. I think a lot of people will be requesting it. That's why I was saying that. But I understand why Dempsey's is definitely asking for it.
Yeah, I think Nutrition 365 is going to ask for one. I mean, I could see this going.
No, I think I like the idea of one on each block. So we probably should centralize it so it doesn't show any favoritism, but Right
Exactly.
now, we have a precedent on the board. We have one right in front of Chandler's. Now, it's a short block, so it could be considered centralized, I guess, to that one. But I think we got to be very uniform about it, because even though Dempsey's down here, if that parking spot's right across from me, which is dead center, it still helps Dempsey's, but it also helps Diane. It helps everybody on
Right.
that side of the block.
Right, you got Brick Wall down there by Chalmers. They're gonna want one too. I mean, why wouldn't?
Who enforces these? Like if you're there for 45 minutes?
There isn't anybody. That's the problem downtown. You have, business owners that park in front of their business all day and there's nobody. You call the police department and maybe somebody will go by and mark the time that they saw it. But since we got rid of the parking guy,
So it's kind of honor system, which could, in most cases, probably would work. I'm just curious what happens if somebody decides they don't care.
there's no honor system down there.
Well,
Sorry,
Diane.
but there's
that's a much bigger discussion I don't want to spill into, but enforcement is something that I would like, but most people don't. So, but, because there is quite a bit of abuse on the streets. And that,
yes.
so I would love to get that back in, but there's a lot of cost issues and all kinds of things associated with that. So I would save that for a later date. But I think what we've done is a good discussion that Angie can take back to the commission. I don't know if it's on the agenda, or Gordon too, sorry. That you guys can hear what we had to say about it, what our feelings are, but I don't think we're the final authority on who gets it at the end of the day, unless the commission would prefer that we do take that authority. So, but at the moment, I do think it's a commission decision, city commission decision.
Well, we can make a recommendation, can't we, Dusty?
You sure can. And I think, does anybody have any problem with us considering one parking spot per side of the street?
I like that. I feel like that's the only fair way to do it without having every other spot designated to a business.
I agree.
Yeah.
If I could just chime
Go ahead,
in,
Brad. Sure.
I think putting it adjacent to the crosswalks mid-block on North Main and East Maumee would probably be the best idea, so that there's a little bit of safety involved, and it also gives us a spot that we can just say, that's where it is, and you all have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Congruent with the study as well, right?
It is. Yep.
East Maumee, I would definitely not be in favor of that, because that's going to put the spot in front of the Croswell. And we already have a problem when we have elderly people trying to get dropped off. I really think we are jumping the gun on just saying after 5 minutes of discussion, we want one on each side of each block. I think that's a lot of parking. And while there's most days, it's not a problem for parking in downtown, on the days that it is, those spots, that's going to be a lot of spots.
Well, that's kind of to the point, right? So when the rest of the spots are full, there's still the ability for people to come and grab things they need and then leave.
Yeah, talk to me on a Sunday afternoon when the Croswell is sold out and there's not a single restaurant open.
Well, I understand, but I mean, that is kind of the point, right?
Dusty, I think that there are a lot of issues that ought to be looked at. I think we're on the right track here. I would think the commission might want to take a look at other communities if they're going to make a policy about this, that in the end, they're going to have to enforce it. It just seems like, there are a lot of particular issues that need to be worked out before the sign gets put up someplace. It's easy to put signs up. It's hard to get stuff changed once we've done it. I'd want to check with Tecumseh or other communities and see, do they have those signs up? And if not, why not? I mean, they all have the same issues that we have. So I think it's worth just a little more discussion before we, encourage the commission to do something. They're certainly welcome to do whatever they want on their own, but I don't think we have enough time and energy into this to make a recommendation.
And I was gonna say to that, there's things that needs to be looked at, like, do we have it like certain times of the day? I saw that. I used to live in Chicago, and so ours would only be, there would be curbside in certain areas of the block, but it would only be from like 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. or there can be parameters put in like that. And the other thing I was going to say is, like, this commission meeting coming up is jammed full. I already know that for the pre-meeting. And then the July 6th, we may be discussing, they may be coming in for our search for our city administrator. The GovHR might be coming in and presenting. They're not sure yet. So that could be, so we may have some time, because I'm not sure when it's going to be able to get into that pre-meeting discussion yet. It might be able to be on July 6th, but I know it cannot happen on this June 15th because the pre-meeting is just packed full. So but I think there are things you can look at, time limits, days. Those are things that I've seen personally where it's, you know, it's only Monday through Friday during this time, and then maybe Saturday, Sunday, it says different times, or maybe it says does not apply to Sunday, or whatever it might be.
That's probably going to be the best solution.
Yeah. I like it. I think the discussion was valuable. I think it you know, with Gordon here and Angie, I think they can take that information back to the commission and discuss it. And we just will hold off on a formal recommendation because of those types of parameters. But Angie, I do like the idea that does address maybe the crosswell by limiting it so that it's never there during a show, maybe.
Well, Dusty, I guess our committee will take up on this before the next meeting and
That sounds
discuss
good.
further.
Excellent. All right, thank you guys for having that discussion. All right, Mark Murray, anything on the charging station? Have you talked to Matt lately? We're getting close.
I have yesterday and previous to that, and Matt says that the request is going in front of the commission on the next cycle and should get approval the way he described it, and that's right from Matt yesterday. So that's
excellent.
The most current information we have on that.
All right, Angie and Gordon, don't get in the way of that, okay? All right, excellent. All right, Beautification and Branding Committee, Jerry Ryder. I see the pots are all out there, beautiful.
And they look really nice. That's really Kim's work. So the committee is looking to meet in the next 2 weeks to really dig in now. We had some just kind of anxiety about meeting during the total shutdown. So we're working hard for Christmas and a longer term plan.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, Promotion and Events Committee. So what's been happening, and I keep hearing it from all different corners from different people, that since our Delicious had been canceled and a number of our other events, we are all trying to conceptualize what a large event might look like in late August, early September. I think we need to do a welcome back to Adrian type of, or downtown Adrian type of event. I don't know what the theme would be. I wanted to get everybody's mind start thinking about what that would look like. There was discussion on I went to the first Friday, and I think Jerry, you were there too, first Friday committee meeting, and they talked about having banners put up, a welcome to downtown. But I think it really is our responsibility to come up with something that's, I don't know if, you know, where to go with this, but I'm hearing everybody from Mike McLemore wanting to put on a bunch of bands to, we still have Dave Thomas, who has the Blues and Brews that has not canceled at this point. I was hoping he'd be here, but he's got an employee thing where he's having to work. I think he can't be here today, but I think he'd be a great leader in that as well. But I wanted to open up for discussion, see what people are thinking. And I know, Jerry, you had some ideas as well. Anyone?
No.
No?
Well, it's
Dustin,
my committee, but I don't know.
I'm really just bringing it up to begin with. So it's not like this.
Get it pulled together that fast, Dusty?
I don't know. That's why I wanted to talk about it today. I mean, I feel like we need to do something, but I know there's still some uncertainties that need to be cleared up. But if we don't get on it right soon, it's not going to be happening at all.
You do know we have that student event downtown on that Saturday at the end of August.
Yep.
That's a big deal. That's a huge deal.
Right. I think we could maybe piggyback on that. I don't know. That was another thing I heard as well.
Yeah. But there's
Dusty,
like 700 kids down there, and it's all related to schools, you know, to the colleges. I don't know.
That event is on August 30th. Right now, Joyce and I were going to have a conversation next week. We are still looking at how this pandemic has affected our welcome week for large group events and how we're going to do this with safety and well-being in mind. So it is definitely something that is tentative at this point, but I should have an update at our next CDA meeting.
Are you thinking of canceling?
We may have to modify how we do it to do different events in smaller groups throughout the welcome week that we have, but those changes have not been finalized yet. If we don't have to change it, obviously we wouldn't want to, but we've just continued to respond by the information that we have for health and safety, and we're really looking at the overall well-being of our students to give them a great first impression, not just for Siena, but for our college town.
Does Angie or anyone else have insight on, I know the governor has said that she's hoping to move the entire state to phase 5 by the holidays, but the number, like a restriction on, like right now, 100 is the limit on outside gatherings, which if that doesn't change, obviously.
It is, yeah, Jerry, if she does what she did in Region 6 and 8, which is what we expect her to do, what she just did for them is gatherings of 250 outside. However, then she had like sporting events could be up to 500. So it was sporting events and something, it wasn't just sporting events, and I can't remember what it was. I did look through it, now I don't remember. But there were certain events could be up to 500, but I know like if you were to have like a grad party, an outdoor wedding, whatever it might be, she used those as examples. Those could be like up to 250 where you do like an invited event. But like if you're having a sporting event, I felt like she said had concerts or things in there, it could be up to 500. And that was in those regions where she just already moved them to phase 5. We're expecting that to happen to us, you know, hopefully by the 4th of July, if she follows suit with what she did in those regions.
Right, probably depending on if there's spikes or whatever.
Right. Does that help answer it a little bit?
It does, but it leaves us still such an uncertain state that it's going to be really impossible to create an event at this point without knowing those things. There'd be a lot of work, and if we end up there and we're still at a 250 restriction, that doesn't work.
How
But
is
I think
July?
how is that's within a certain space too? Like, you know, we've talked about this a little bit. The city administrator and I've talked even a little bit about that. Like, what it just throwing things out. Him and I were just discussing, what does it look like when you have like all of downtown? When you have, you know, that's a lot more space. They can be a lot more spread out. It's not going to be. Now it'd be one thing if you had like bands there and you had like a concert going. Now you're going to have them in a confined space. That's a little bit different. But we were discussing, you know, anything to get people more downtown again, you know, like some kind of big event and, you know, just something. I mean, he was saying that too, like we gotta get these businesses, we gotta get people here for them. And that was what was said is like, when you look at the parameters of downtown and they're spread out, is that going to apply? Those are things we don't really know, but that is what we were talking about.
It looks like July 1st Friday is still a go. Is that correct? I mean, how is that? How are they managing that same question? Because obviously they're going to, right? It looks like it's on.
It is on according to the committee, but I think Angie has the point there. If we're going to be walking around, going to restaurants, the first Friday is just a walk around shopping and the like, and everything spread out, but we're not creating a single spot to cause a congregation of people. And so I think that's probably, that way people can practice safe social distancing and everything, and all the businesses can do what they need to do to make it safe. But like you're saying, if we put bands in front of everybody, we're going to pull them all together. And that's probably an activity we don't want to do.
Well, I mean, some of that should be up to the individual, right? Like because if you're still advised to, you know, to practice social distancing and you choose not to, I mean, that's not necessarily on an open air event, right? That's on the individual.
Well, I'll tell you from the Croswell's Board of Directors point of view,
Mhm.
if the governor hasn't said it's okay, we are very cautious because right now there's no reason why if someone contracts the virus and they were at your event where you were not following the guidelines, that they can't sue you. And I mean, believe me, that's not the world I want to live in, but there's nothing to protect the business or the organization from someone indicating that they contracted the virus while they were at your event. And I think it's kind of ridiculous, but it's also the reality that we just have to be super cautious.
Yeah, I feel like I agree with Jerry. I feel like if you're hosting the event, then it is up to you to make sure I mean, you still might get a congregation of people at that event where there's more than what there's supposed to be. But I think when you have something at that event that you know is going to draw people in, that is going to put them in close proximity, that's where it could be the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like a show.
Yes, I agree, Jerry. Siena Heights is thinking about the same thing. And also for that event with all of our freshmen, we have to think about transportation, getting them to and from safely. And it's a lot of risks that we have to look at how we're going to overcome.
Well, would everybody agree that we really can't start or really create an event at this point with the knowledge we have and all the discussion that we had, which was great discussion because it did go over a number of different aspects that we can just sort of table this for now?
Yeah, I guess we need to wait for permission.
If it's helpful, so a couple of things that the Croswell is planning that are smaller that might inspire some ideas for DDA. So this Friday night, we have 10 different locations well spread out through downtown where we're just having an artist for an hour. So a singer, we have a guy who's gonna lay on a bed of nails, we have violin players, we have painters. So it's a big variety and they're gonna be like one at the Armory, one at the Historical Museum, one at the Farmer's Market. So they are well spaced. At each location, masks will be provided, signs indicating that masks are suggested. We're trying to take all those precautions. So that might be, where it's more traveling. So people don't, and it's only 1 hour. So you don't see more than 2 or 3, you really have to keep moving. Then we are also looking at actually producing a show at the Farmer's Market where we would limit seating based on space and the number allowed. So we're thinking right now we limit seating to about 80 people, but do it multiple nights or afternoons or whatever, we don't know yet. So that might be something else to consider where, maybe there's some other larger location. I don't know where, Comstock Park maybe, or the parking lot behind Church Street parking lot. So maybe that could be, I don't know. I mean, I think there are ways to be creative about it and be within the guidelines, but it takes a ton of thinking and it's like way outside of our normal, it's way outside the box, I guess. And I'm happy to keep brainstorming or talking if anybody would like to.
Yeah, Jerry, you didn't ask me to bring my fire batons and perform.
There's still one more spot.
We have one more spot. Angie, got it.
Well,
Excellent.
Dusty.
Yes.
So far, the Rotary, we're still planning to do our bike event on September 19th. That's so far we're planning a go where we have done it for the last be our fourth bike event. So we're going to be monitoring that, but we're planning at
September 19th.
Yeah, that's the same weekend as Artelicious. We're going to keep that spot there, and we don't draw a lot of people. But my understanding, talking to other bike events people, that there are a lot of bike events that have been canceled in May, June, July. There may be some in August. We may get a bigger influx of bikers around the Midwest because of a lot of the bike events have been canceled for 2020.
Understood. Well, and I guess we will just table that for now. I do want to bring up on the heels of that, though, is the first Fridays, Jason Preston was at that meeting, and he was talking to Kirk Valentine about whether or not we could hang banners on the four corners and those cables. I don't know if they came to a conclusion that it was appropriate, or if the commission has to approve something like that. But I would love to see a sign up there welcoming everybody back to downtown or something of that nature. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that. Anybody opposed to it?
Greg, do we have to? I don't think the city commission has to approve that. Greg Elliott, I know you're on the call. Do you know?
I think it's just a right-of-way approval as far as I know.
What I thought.
It's arguably within the approval that the city commission gave that we're going to talk about at the end of the meeting as well.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. All right, the next subject on the agenda is Main Street, and I haven't really progressed any further on the communication plan. I do like the idea of having Emily join in now and helping us with this. And I think we talked about it with her at the interview. So, and then I really haven't progressed any further on the interns, just because of this COVID and COVID shutdown. It's very difficult to do it's difficult to get that interest right now because all the students where they're at. So, and the visit to Howell's on hold still. I do have Katie's number, their Main Street director, and she'd be willing to see us. I don't know if we should plan that a month or two out as well, so that we can feel free to walk around and see everything. So again, I'm keeping those on the board just because those are very important things that we need to take as our next steps. And hopefully Emily can be a great addition in helping us on that. All right. So I'm going to hand it over to Greg. There was some great work by the City Commission. I wanted to share it with you and what's happening with downtown. Many of you may know, many of you may not. So Greg.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. The City Commission at a special meeting on June 4th, I want to say was the date, approved some measures to help with business reopenings in light of the COVID situation. And they kind of fall into three general categories of opportunities. One thing that they provided for, so we've had sidewalk cafe permits in the past that apply downtown. They allowed for that to happen this year for anybody who would be in a position to have a sidewalk cafe without any prior permit, as long as you follow the basic rules for placement that are contained in the city's zoning ordinance, essentially allowing for 4 feet of clearway adjacent to the cafe, and waived any associated fee with that. In fact, waived any associated fee with all these activities, and provided in other cases for expedited review. But in that case, as I say, there's no review required ahead of the fact. The city staff will kind of go around and take a look at these spaces. Of course, we're there to answer any questions that folks have about whether they're viable, but essentially gave people the go ahead to just go ahead and do that. Supposed to work hand in hand with, although it's not necessarily only for restaurants and bars, it's supposed to work hand in hand with what the Liquor Control Commission is also doing and expediting permits for new or expanded outdoor seating areas for licensed holders of there. And the next category of things were right-of-way closures that I referenced sort of earlier there. Not really so much the street, it could be the street, but more parking lots and alleyways, places where, again, an adjacent business could have outdoor seating. A brick wall has already availed itself of that for an area behind their back entry, for outdoor seating. back there. And I should say that in each of these cases, the opportunity is there by right adjacent to your own building that you own or control, but also if you can get the permission of your neighboring owner, assuming they don't need that space, you can expand it into that area as well, but that's only with you can only occupy the area in front of another owner's property if you have their permission and demonstrate that. That we do a review that goes through Matt Tomaszewski, the DPW director. We do a review ahead of the fact with that because we're talking about public property. But we've committed as staff to reviewing those on a 24-hour turnaround. Doesn't mean they can always be approved, but we will review them on a 24-hour turnaround. And then the third category is what we call temporary use permits. Those are similar to the others, but they're a outdoor use on private property. The example there would be Chomp's outdoor seating area. That's private property. It's not an area that their site plan allows for such use, but we had the option in the zoning ordinance for those kind of things to be approved by the zoning board of appeals. The commission by resolution allowed the city administrator or his designee, which is me in the case of those uses, to approve them administratively. Again, we've committed to a 24-hour review, and there's no fees associated with those. I mean, we'll speak a bit. Some of you probably saw the email from Dan Malloy about the Chomp tent, and maybe hopefully my response as well. There's some confusion arose over that. Like I say, we can commit to reviewing it in 24 hours. We can't always commit to approving it in 24 hours. And when you add a tent into the mix, as they did there, the fire marshal has to review and approve those. So that has to happen before you would be able to occupy it. It does slow the process down a little bit as well. And I think with that one, we had some concern about whether a tent really addresses outdoor, the issue of outdoor dining and what's supposed to be happening. The idea of outdoor space is that it's not limited in the same way as it relates to occupancy as indoor space, because the air is moving, viral load is less in that air. The risk to people sitting relatively closer together is less. Again, in all these cases, you have to follow the current executive order up to 114 or something as it relates to that one about social distancing and those kind of business settings. But we did ultimately approve that, and it is, it is the option of the applicant to decide how they're going to configure that space. We don't get involved in saying that. We review it for the criteria related to the location. The location is functional, and again, there are no fees associated with that either. Those are the kind of the three core components, but just generally, Mayor may want to add more to this than what I've said, but just generally the idea was to give the city administrator flexibility to allow businesses to do things that are related to their response to the effects of the COVID pandemic that will help their reopen.
Excellent. Well, Angie and Gordon and the commission, thank you for all of that. Waiving the fees, giving some more flexibility. Greg, thank you for working it through the system. And, I wanted to know if anybody has any questions for Greg on that. Say your dog, Diane.
Yes.
She has a question?
Yes, apparently she does. She would like someone to play with her. No.
All right, Greg, thank you very much.
Well, I got a question. I'm sorry, because I'm just wondering, I hope for pushing the envelope on this for our restaurants, because what's happening. A lot of our constitutional rights have been trampled on this COVID-19, and it's. I think we should be very focused on the businesses that are in the downtown and give them the benefit of the doubt, what they need to do. And if it needs, because I have seen places outside of Michigan where they're putting some picnic tables along the sidewalks for more capacity for people to sit down on, or also on parking spots of downtown. And until we get the normal, I think we should help our restaurant businesses any way we can.
Well, I should add that the DPW also, they had 15 extra picnic tables that weren't assigned to parks. So they're spreading those out around downtown. You might have seen there's a couple behind the library now in that public space back there. But the idea is to give people more options for using the public space in connection with outdoor dining or just being out and about, patronizing businesses downtown, maximizing their use of the outdoor public areas that are available. And this is just the commission intended this to just be a first immediate stroke. They haven't stopped thinking about it, and other options will be considered as they come along.
No, thank you.
Any other comments?
Sorry.
Fine. If there are no other comments on that, we'll move along to the chair comments. I have a lot to say, but I bring something up that's interesting. Yesterday, I had a conversation with Brett Cotton, and I've had conversations with Dave Horseman and a number of other businesses in the downtown, even Diane and the like. When you hear their stories, it's absolutely amazing how much money they've taken as a hit in this situation, how hard a hit they took. The PPP did not help the restaurants, as you probably have figured out at this point in time. And going back to 50% capacity, Brett went down to Ohio and talked to a lot of those businesses, and he said it starts off really, really slow until the comfort comes back. But we are now in a mode where human behavior has gotten to a carry-out type status, and that seems to be the norm. If you don't have a business or a restaurant that is conducive to carry-out, then it's really, really tough on them. And I think sauce is one of those, but rice and barley is another. And so I just say that because if you ever have a chance, he talked for 45 minutes, and you could hear the stress in his voice and how much pressure he's under. So I know I want to do whatever we can to promote our downtown businesses more than ever. I don't know if we have an action item today on that, but I think we got to start thinking about, can we be a catalyst for some advertising or something of that nature?
Yeah.
How do we start messaging to help our downtown businesses, and what do we use as a medium to do that?
Can I just inject here that signage is something that we are lacking as far as the colleges, around the colleges, so that the parents who come into town for sporting events and such have no idea that there is a downtown Adrian. They think business is, our downtown is out on 223. And I've run into this for the last 10 years at Adrian College, where they simply don't know that they're just that close to where we are. And so they don't come downtown. And that is one thing, but paying for some advertising, getting some banners up across the roads, Wayfair signs telling how to get to the downtown would be immensely helpful to all of us.
So, yeah, I think that brings us back to the wayfinding signs and putting a little bit more increased effort on that and really trying to get that to happen. I think that is a big important. And I'll continue the discussions regarding the banners with the other committee and with the city, and we'll see what we can pull off. But I do think that all of us just sit and think, what would be a good idea? Share them with me, send them to me. We'll send them to the city. But again, it's a very unusual time, very difficult to be creative, and it takes a lot of thinking, as Jerry said. I think it does, because I'm not coming up with any brilliant ideas because it's so difficult. But
Well,
but I
Dusty,
think that-
one thing.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Well,
Go ahead.
Dusty, one thing we might want to start in the DDA is maybe a restaurant committee to deal with restaurant owners to hear the whole front, what's going on, and so we're getting it. They're part of the conversation.
Yeah. And again, restaurants have their strife, retail has its strife, a lot of people have the strife. So I want to be careful not to just hone in on them completely, but I think as we go through this entire agenda, you can see the conversation keeps floating around the same thing. What can we do? What can we do? And so I don't know if we have to create a committee, but we're all in on this one. We all have to try to come up with some creative
We
ideas.
got to quit saying, what can we do, and do something. That's what we have to do.
So what I'll try to do, at least by our next meeting or even before that, is if I can do some research on some advertising, and it would be more of the type of advertising we saw where it highlights all the businesses or a large part of the businesses, where we're not saying, okay, this business gets advertising this week and that one gets it the next week, but it'd be more of a generalized statement. And I wouldn't do anything without approval, of course. So maybe by next meeting, we can have something organized on that front. And then I want to get more detail on the banners. And then, of course, we all need to work on the wayfinding. So if we can get that wayfinding and that parking committee meeting, Chip, that will be very important.
Yep, we'll get that moving.
All right. Thank you for that. All right, we'll go to public comment. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak? It's on the line.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a couple of comments if I could.
Sure, Gordon.
Actually, in just talking about the advertising, I'm wondering, and there's people on the line that can probably answer the question, if either or both colleges have some kind of daily or weekly newspaper that get distributed, that might be a good place to place a small ad to just remind everybody on a weekly basis that we've got a downtown. The other comments that I would like to make, I like all of these ideas that we've talked about today, and I don't see, hopefully the mayor doesn't disagree with me, I don't see any huge hurdles that would have to be jumped to get city commission approval. Commissioner Roberts is also on the line now, so my concern, and from the mayor's perspective, I'm probably starting to talk about a broken record here. Code enforcement is going to be very, very difficult. Primarily in Mr. Elliott's area of responsibility, we have a single code enforcement officer. And with rental inspections, with all the other things around town, the blight, the buildings that need to be tagged. We have 3 or 4 proposals in front of us now that would require code enforcement, and there's only one person. We've had a budget cutback. We originally had hoped that, we could add to that staff, but it doesn't look like that's going to be able to happen this year. So I'm cautious about how many things that we approve. Are they going to get enforced? Are we be able to enforce 15-minute parking downtown? I don't know. But I'm concerned about that. So I'll just throw that out for everybody's thinking. It was already raised by a couple of people who's going to do the enforcement. And, maybe I'll throw it over to Mr. Elliott and see if he has any thoughts on that matter.
Yeah, so we're kind of even more behind the 8 ball than usual because although Glenn Preston was working during the shutdown, we really tried to take a hands-off approach with people. We felt like they had enough to deal with, and only the most egregious violations got enforced at that time. Of course, he didn't go in and do any of the rental housing inspections. We had a plan prior to the pandemic in our draft budget to add at least a half-time. Our idea was to add a half-time code enforcement person who could also just with building inspections. It's kind of a dream scenario. It's hard to find someone who can get registered for that, but you know, we'll have to revisit that got cut, of course, with everything else that was new in light of the revenue challenges. We'll have to revisit that at some point in the future. But I agree with Commissioner Gauss's comments that it's a challenge for one person. There's some of these things, other staff, the planning and zoning administrator, the building official, fire chief get involved in terms of doing inspections as well. It is a lot for one.
Thank you, Greg.
Excellent. Are there any other public comments?
I would like to say something. I'm Mary Sealer, and I own the Gallery Shops with Les, my husband. We also own Sealer's Water Systems and the Downtown Dempsey's. And my daughter is the manager of Downtown Dempsey's and has actually asked for that sign out front for over a year. So I got the information late today about this meeting and how to sign on. So I apologize that I wasn't here during the discussion of that, but I wasn't exactly sure if, you know, you were talking about how to help the downtown businesses, and this is one little way to do it. If you have a handicapped person and they can't find a parking space in the front, for them to actually park in that Church Street parking lot and walk through the whole gallery to walk a block, they're not going to come to the restaurant. So just keep considering, I guess, if you said you want to help restaurants, maybe that's one little way to do it.
Thank you for that comment. What happened in that discussion before you came on is there was a number of issues about setting precedent, how many numbers of them would be allowed, where they would be positioned fairly. Do you do it in front of every business? Do you let every business do that? What happens to the Croswell and a number of other things? So at the end of the day, the DDA discussed it and talked about it, but at the end of the day, the commission makes the final decision on those.
Okay. Well, I don't know that it would involve a lot of other businesses just because it's one space in front of the restaurant that's just for a 15-minute pickup and off you go. So
I understand.
I mean, Croswell, you're there for a couple hours and most people are going to be there. I mean, this is just a one little spot basically that's would help a restaurant.
We certainly understand, and our parking committee is going to discuss it. The city commission will probably be discussing it in detail, and so I know everybody wants to help. I promise you we all do. So how that finalizes should be in. I don't know if it'll hit the discussion of the commission on the next meeting, but maybe the meeting thereafter is when I'll take it out. So
okay.
All right.
Thank you for that consideration.
Yep. Are there any other public comments? Are there any other DDA matters that need to be brought up today?
I have one thing. I just wanted to know if it was okay if I had everybody send me an email with their preferred email address that we use for the minutes, because there's been some, like Meredith hasn't been able to get her any of the information sent to her, but also what committees you are on, and what committees you might be the chairman of, and if you wish to participate on a particular committee, it would be nice that I could type it all up and send it, have Ashley send it out for everybody to have a way to get a hold of people, whatnot. Is that possible, Dusty?
No, I mean, you just made a request. If you want to send it to Diane or to me, either way, just give me your updated email address, send it to me. You know, we'll see it on that. I think I don't know what was with Meredith's email, but we retyped the exact same one and it made it to her. So I have no idea what was blocking that or how that happened.
But it would just be helpful to know what committees.
Right, I haven't been very good at formalizing all the committees. I can tell you that much. I know I have chairmans in some of the spots, but I would like to hear everybody's interest in what committee they would be most preferable on working with. So
And
if you guys wouldn't mind.
required, isn't every member on the DDA required to at least sit on committees? If not, chair?
But it's not bylaw driven.
It's not. Okay. Well, we need to look at that. We got to get people moving around here. One person cannot do it all.
Understood. All right. Any other board comments?
Yes, I just want to let everyone know that I cannot say who it is or anything like that, but we do have an interim that we are recommending. There was an interview committee for our city administrator, so just rest assured when Nathan leaves that we do have someone that, as long as it gets voted on by the city commission on Monday night, it'll be a done deal. But we do have someone that was chosen. We had an interview committee and interviewed several candidates, and we do have an interim city administrator that is chosen that will continue on with Nathan Bird's duties after he leaves until we can get our permanent one from our national search.
Angie, when is Nathan's last day?
July 8th, I was going to look. July 18th, I do believe was the date. I'll look.
I think it's the 17th.
July
It's the 17th.
It has to be the 17th because I'm getting married on the 18th.
Yeah, it's July 7th.
Dusty.
I know.
You're going to really do
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Congratulations, Dusty.
I thought you got married in March.
We've been together for 15 years. We had to be sure. So we had to take time. So it's going to be fun, but that'll be a great Saturday. So fun. All right. Any other board?
Dusty.
Thank you.
I do want to just take a second to address the protesting and Black Lives Matter issues that really are kind of taking over our country and bringing to the forefront a lot of injustices that have been done and a lot of ways that me have overlooked people of color and my own inherent biases. And I just want to encourage the DDA. I think we really need to be very intentional about adding people of color to our conversation. I think we need to think really hard about the Hispanic population in this community and how they are represented and the opportunities that we are providing them, and actively seeking out people of color to join our conversation. It's easy enough to keep my circle of advisors looking mostly like me, but I think it's never been more important, and I think we can be demonstrating to other organizations, to other city leaders, our own decision to move forward, seeking people of color to join our conversation. I think it's so important, and I would be happy to have further conversation with anyone about that. And I'm going to try and do my own job of encouraging people to be in these meetings, to be involved at the city level. So I think it's just important that we talk about it over and over and over again in order for it to really institute change.
Very well said, Jerry. I agree. So I think all of us should encourage the same. Just to let you know that our police force is very, very busy right now. Extremely busy right now. And because everybody's been in their homes and the like, there's been a lot of activity that is keeping our force working day and night at this moment. There was some disruptive behavior after the demonstration on Sunday. And of course, Facebook and social media amplified it to the max to get everybody scared. And I know some friends of mine came down and took their servers out of their office buildings thinking we were going to have chaos like that. There is a couple people that are being very aggressive, if you will, and they're continuing to put their threats out there, if you will. So that's sort of the dark side of what's been such a beautiful thing as far as protest and really making the voices heard. That's one of the hardships that we're having to deal with. So if you see our police officers, they're working day and night right now, so that's difficult as well. They're busy. Vince is very busy, isn't he, Angie?
Yes, when he's texting me at midnight, he's very busy. Yes.
Very busy. So, tough time on that. Any other board comments?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mark here. First of all, I'd like to thank Jerry for doing a wonderful job in getting some events started. And Jerry, if you would, is there a name for that event this Friday and the hours that that's being operated?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes. Sorry, I was muted. It's just 1 hour, so it's 5:30 to 6:30. We wanted to just start small and see what happens. It's part of the Croswell Out of Doors series, and this is called Color the Downtown. So we do have sidewalk chalk. I got a giant box of sidewalk chalk delivered to my house. So, we'll be encouraging some chalking as well. So.
Great, Jerry. Thanks so much. I also would like to give a shout out to Jason Lawrence at the city. The last couple of years, the Armory has been able to purchase through his offices flowers for the front of our facility that match the rest of the downtown. And I'd like to encourage the commissioners and the mayor to spread the word on that, that it really amplifies the work that the city does by having other entities around being able to utilize that same color theme. And just wanted to thank the commission for letting Jason sell us those flowers. And I hope you're not making too much money on it, but we really appreciate that. And I think lastly, I just wanted to reiterate what we've heard. This last 3 months has been painful for me to watch our downtown be empty and going to the south end of town, and whether it's Lowe's or Walmart or Aldi or Family Farm, these other businesses are jam-packed with people, and our downtown has really, really suffered. I don't have much to offer other than what I've heard, except that we should keep our ears open. And if there are businesses that are considering closing, I think it behooves all of us to really work hard to try to support those downtown businesses. And all businesses in our community. Many of our businesses have been shut down. So it's been a really difficult situation. I think we just really want to pay attention to that during this next few months as we try to get back on our feet. I know we'll all do that, but as you've all said, it's been a terrible experience for all of us. Thank you.
Any other board comments? All right, well, we could have met in person. I wanted you to know that, but we would have only been limited to 10 people, I think, and then we'd had to teleconference it. And by the time they got to the third sentence, they said, we're going to do a Zoom meeting. So, if we're in the same circumstance next month, that's the way it'll be done. If they've loosened it up, I know Mark has offered to let the gymnasium, what do you call it, the drill room? No, yeah, the drill room. We can spread out in there. Might be a little acoustical challenge, but I think it will give us a chance to be together. And so hopefully by next meeting, we can meet at the Armory and the drill room. So with that said, our next meeting is July 8th, 2020. And if there are no objections, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. I thank you all for being a part of this, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.